The quiet of that sterile hospital room in Columbus, Ohio, still echoes in my bones. Even months later, I can feel the chill of the linoleum floor under my bare feet, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm of angry bees, and the crushing void where my baby's heartbeat should have been. At 14 weeks, I'd been carrying this tiny spark of life, dreaming of first steps and lullabies, only for it all to unravel in a blur of crimson sheets and frantic calls to the ER. The doctor, with his clipped Midwestern accent, placed a hand on my shoulder and murmured something about nature's way, but his words dissolved into the air. All I heard was the absence, the deafening hush that swallowed my world. When I finally dragged myself home, the silence tagged along like an unwelcome shadow. Our modest ranch-style house on the outskirts of town looked the same, the lawnmower still parked in the garage, the American flag fluttering from the porch. But every corner screamed of what was lost. The baby registry printout sat untouched on the kitchen counter, its cheerful images of strollers and onesies now mocking me with their unfulfilled promises. In the nursery, we'd started painting, a soft blue like the Ohio sky, a stack of tiny blankets gathered dust, each fold a reminder of the dreams I'd stitched together in secret hope. Folks around here love to spout that old chestnut, time heals all wounds. I'd stare at those sympathy cards piling up on the mantel, scrawled with Hallmark platitudes, and think, nah, time just scabs over until the itch drives you mad. I wasn't just mourning a child, I was drowning in the isolation of everyone else's rush to get over it. Friends tiptoed around me at the grocery store, offering awkward nods instead of hugs. Neighbors waved from their driveways, but never asked how I was holding up, as if grief was contagious. It was the loneliness that gnawed deepest, the way sorrow perched at the edge of my bed each night while the world spun on without pause. A couple weeks after the quiet graveside service, where we'd buried a box too small for words, my father-in-law George stopped by unannounced. He lumbered in with a greasy bag from the local diner, the kind with powdered donuts that left your fingers sticky. He plunked it on the counter, cleared his throat like he was about to deliver a sermon, and fixed me with that stern gaze of his. "You're young, Emily," he said, voice gruff but steady, like he was coaching Little League. "Plenty of time for another shot. These things happen for a reason." I nodded, biting back the bile rising in my throat. But inside, his words carved fresh scars. To him, my baby girl was just a bump in the road, something to dust off with bootstraps and optimism. He didn't mean to twist the knife, hell. In this part of Ohio, folks think tough love fixes everything, but cruelty doesn't always snarl. Sometimes it pats you on the back. When my husband Harlan got home from his shift at the auto plant, George slapped him on the shoulder like old times. "The good Lord gives and takes away," he added, nodding sagely. "You two just keep truckin', Dot." I wanted to shatter the silence right there, scream that my loss wasn't some divine test of grit. George had his kids, his grandkids, a whole legacy etched in family photos on his mantle. What did he know of this hollow ache? I sat at the table, listening to the tick of the wall clock, pretending his dismissal didn't reduce my daughter to a footnote. In Midwest culture, strength means sucking it up, plastering on a smile, and marching forward, no time for wallowing. The older folks call it resilience, but to me, it felt like erasure. Like my pain was an inconvenience to be swept under the rug. I remember watching George shuffle out to his pickup, gravel crunching under his boots, and feeling tinier than ever. My anger wasn't just at him, it was at the whole damn system that demanded I fold my grief into a neat square and tuck it away, like those unused baby blankets in the closet. My sorrow had no seat at the dinner table, no voice in the conversations that droned on about football scores and the weather forecast. As the 4th of July loomed, The family insisted on the annual cookout at George's place, a sacred tradition in our neck of the woods. Red, white, and blue bunting draped porches up and down the street. Fireworks stands popped up on every corner, and the air hummed with the promise of sparklers and freedom. But the idea of faking joy amid the grill smoke and laughter twisted my gut like a bad batch of potato salad. I tried telling Harlan I couldn't face it. We were in the kitchen, the fridge humming softly, his work boots leaving mud streaks on the tile. He leaned against the counter, arms folded, exhaustion etching lines around his eyes. "It'll be good for you." He insisted, voice low but firm. "You've been cooped up too long. Just put on a smile. Grab a hot dog. Mingle a bit. It'll help." I shook my head, tears pricking. "I'm not ready. They don't want to hear about this. They just want me to act like it never happened." He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was the one being unreasonable. "That's how we get through stuff around here. You don't gotta bring it up. Just blend in. Blend in like I hadn't already faded into the background of our marriage." In these tight-knit Ohio towns, family gatherings are all about keeping up appearances, everyone chuckling over corny jokes, flipping burgers under the stars, pain bottled up behind closed doors. Small talk about the Buckeyes or the latest rain serves as a bandage over the raw spots nobody wants to poke. That night, I stood at the window, watching neighbors twirl sparklers with their kids, their giggles slicing through the dark. It hit me how effortless joy looked for them. How fragile it felt when you'd clutched it close only to watch it slip away. The morning of the barbecue, I wrestled with staying home, bolting the door, letting them whisper about my fragility behind my back. I could picture Valerie, Harlan's sister-in-law, always the center of attention, tilting her head in fake pity, murmuring how I was too delicate for family fun. But showing up meant grinning through the pain, enduring the pitying stares like a cracked vase on display. My heart tore between two hells: go and be humiliated, stay and be branded weak. It was a no-win trap. Two paths to the same oblivion. I recalled a line from some book I'd read: "What hurts most ain't the oppressor's boot, but the bystander's blind eye." It thrummed in my chest as I clutched those tiny baby shoes from the drawer, their soft leather a talisman against the void. I'd been waiting for someone to fight for me, to shatter the quiet. But maybe I'd have to do it in a way they'd never see coming. Staring in the mirror, my reflection pale but eyes fierce. A spark ignited beneath the grief. Sorrow wouldn't vanish, but it could forge something unbreakable. I whispered to myself, "They think my silence is surrender, but it'll be my blade." That resolve carried me as I slipped into a simple sundress, one that didn't hide the softness lingering in my belly, but didn't flaunt it either. I wanted them to see me, not the ghost they'd made me, but the woman still standing. Little did I know, every ounce of that quiet steel would be tested before the night was through, especially when her glass clinked and her smirk cut deeper than any words. The afternoon sun beat down relentless as Harlan and I pulled into George's driveway, the air thick with charcoal smoke and the sizzle of burgers. Laughter spilled from the backyard like it always did, kids chasing fireflies early, even though dusk was hours away, streamers flapping in the breeze. The moment I stepped out of the truck, the cheer felt forced, too bright against my shadows. Cousins swarmed with hugs that ended too quick. Voices pitched high, "There she is." But their eyes darted away, unease flickering like the grill flames. It was that classic Midwest nicety, sugar-coated judgment, where smiles hide the barbs. Harlan squeezed my arm once, then wandered off to the beer cooler with his brothers, his back turning as if flipping a switch. Within minutes, his guffaws mixed with theirs, debating the Indians' latest game like the world hadn't shifted. When it came time to eat, the main picnic table was packed tight, elbows bumping, plates heaped with coleslaw and ribs. A distant cousin waved vaguely toward the side yard. Sorry. No room up here. We set you a spot over yonder. His tone was casual, but he wouldn't meet my gaze. I followed his gesture and saw it, a rickety folding chair jammed next to the overflowing trash cans and recycling bins. The stench of warm beer bottles and greasy wrappers wafting up. My stomach lurched, but I forced a nod and shuffled over, the chair wobbling as I sat. A kid's voice piped up. Innocent and piercing, "Why isn't Emily by the garbage?" Snickers rippled through the yard. Adults chuckled awkwardly. Turning away, no one shushed him. No one corrected. Heat flooded my cheeks, shame burning like a brand. I stared at the bins, flies buzzing lazily, and realized, in this family, your seat said it all. Who got the shady spot by George? Who flinked the grill? Mine screamed exile. I was trash, discarded like yesterday's scraps. I poked at my plate, the laughter swelling around me, the air heavy with that unspoken verdict. My chest ached, but I kept my expression blank. Showing cracks here was like waving a white flag. Then, as if the universe conspired to deepen the wound, whispers floated from the drink station. Two aunts poured lemonade, their voices low but carrying. Maybe she lost it 'cause she wasn't careful enough. The other glanced at Valerie, radiant in her maternity sundress, hand cradling her bump like a trophy. Look at Val, though, picture of health. The words stabbed hot and deep, reframing my tragedy as my fault. My carelessness. Gossip turned my grief into a sideshow, a warning tale at my expense. I clenched my fists under the table, nails digging crescents into my palms, fighting the blur in my eyes. What kills you ain't the frontal assault, it's the sidelong stabs when they think you're deaf. Across the yard, Harlan roared with laughter, beer in hand, oblivious or willfully blind. Valerie basked in the spotlight, her glow amplified by every admiring glance. I forced down a bite of corn, sweet but ash in my mouth, face neutral as stone. Inside, though, the truth scorched. Silence wasn't empty here, it was a ballot. And they'd all voted me out. Valerie raised her glass then, the clink echoing like a gunshot, her smile slicing across the yard straight to me. Our eyes locked, and that deliberate curve of her lips said she'd already claimed victory. The chatter hushed as she stood, glass gleaming in the fading light. I stiffened in my exile by the bins, every nerve taut. To family and fresh starts, she proclaimed, voice honey smooth. Pausing for the crowd to echo, Harlan lifted his beer without a glance my way, his easy grin twisting the knife. My pulse thundered. Loyalty in marriage means shielding each other from the storm. Yet his quiet complicity screamed louder than her toast. He wasn't just neutral, he was allied with her shine against my shadows. Laughter swelled, glasses tapped, and the world resumed as if nothing had shattered. I sank deeper, betrayal pressing like a vice. The chair creaked under me as I shifted, drawing Snickers again. A kid yelled, "Auntie's chair's gonna bust." More chuckles, unchecked. The sound wasn't just metal groaning, it was my fragility on display, a prop in their mockery. In these families, your perch reveals your worth. And mine hollered I was disposable. Whispers drifted again from nearby. Val glows like a firefly. Emily looks wrung out. No wonder she couldn't hold on. The comparison seared, her light devouring my darkness. I gripped my napkin, knuckles white, commanding myself not to shatter. Robert Louis Stevenson's words haunted me. The cruelest lies are often told in silence. I got it now. The family's quiet wasn't ignorance, it was endorsement. Crowning Valerie while burying me. Each humiliation stacked like kindling, the trash seat banishment, the mocking creaks, The slicing whispers. Harlan's lifted glass beside her. They weren't wounds anymore, they were fuel. Transforming sorrow into something forged in fire. Resolve pulsed steady beneath the pain. They saw silence as weakness. But mine would sharpen into a reckoning. The air thickened. The yard still buzzing. But I felt the shift before she rose again. Valerie pushed back her chair with theatrical grace. Glass aloft like a scepter. The crowd leaning in as if she owned the night. Smoke hung still as her voice rang out. To blessings, some of us are just built for new life. The words landed veiled but venomous. Her hand on her belly a pointed jab at my emptiness. Murmurs of approval rolled through. Glasses clinking in blind cheer. My throat constricted, those weren't innocent, they were crafted to wound. Declaring her triumph over my failure. I scanned faces for outrage. Harlan averted his eyes. Sipping beer, George bowed his head. Silent as stone. Cousins busied themselves with plates. No one daring to defend. Silence wasn't passive, it was partnership in cruelty. As the toast faded, Valerie glided past. Leaning close with perfume cloying. Timing's everything. Han, she murmured. Syrup masking the sting. My body locked. Fury coiling like a spring. She craved my public break. To rise on my ruins. I held still. Nails biting skin, her fake kindness enraged more than outright hate. Invisible to all but lethal to me. Maya Angelou's wisdom echoed, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. I'd excused her barbs before. But tonight her mask cracked. This was war. Calculated and cold. If I didn't push back, she'd grind me to dust. I swallowed the rage. Banking it for later, Fury was my ally now. Not my undoing. She wasn't done. Her glass rose once more. The crowd captive. At least we're expecting, she quipped. Laughter rippling like applause for my defeat. The bitterness choked me. Her cheer a spotlight on my void. Cruelty rehearsed. Time to perfection. Charm fooling the fools. Desperate. I sought allies. Harlan studied the grass. George feigned deafness. Even Derek, her husband, averted his gaze. Not one word rose for me. Rejection here wasn't loud. It was the quiet erasure. Acting like my chair was vacant while I occupied it. Anger surged. Glass nearly shattering in my grip. I imagined rising. Unleashing the truth, but I stayed seated. Silence could destroy too. And mine would be lethal. The betrayal crystallized. Valerie's daggers. Harlan's apathy. George's denial, all threads in a web of complicity. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words burned. The hottest place in hell is for those neutral in moral crises. Their quiet condemned them. I studied Valerie's triumphant laugh. Harlan's easy lean, memorizing for the storm to come. They mistook my hush for defeat, soon. It'd be their undoing. Slipping away to the shadows by the house. Phone in hand. I hit record as whispers floated from the bushes. Valerie's voice. Smug and low. Once this baby's here, they'll forget her flop. That's how it goes. My breath caught the proof. Raw and irrefutable. Then, darker, anyway. Not even sure it's Derek's. The words hung like poison. I stopped the recording. Heart hammering. Evidence didn't lie, it exposed. Back in the yard. Chatter buzzed. Oblivious. Valerie smirked my way. Head high. I sat silent. Blade concealed, they'd learn soon that quiet could cut deepest. Her voice rose again. Feigned innocence booming. I never meant to hurt a soul, just sharing our joy. Sympathy gasps followed. A cousin cooing as fake tears gleamed. It was theater. Her victim act flipping the script. I bit my cheek. Cataloging every ploy, they craved her innocence because owning mine meant facing their guilt. George's bark cut through, enough. We're celebratin', not stirrin' drama. His dismissal shielded her, reducing my pain to bitterness. His gaze skipped me, protecting the facade, not the truth. Flannery O'Connor's truth rang. Truth don't change, 'cause you can't stomach it. They could deny, but I held the fire. The yard tensed. Silence suffocating. I rose. Phone steady. If words fail, I said calmly, let voices speak. I pressed play. Her cruelty filled the air. They'll forget her. Not sure it's Derek's. Gasps erupted. Forks clattered. Valerie paled, stammering, out of context. But the tape rolled on. Her betrayal bare. No denying a voice's treason. Chaos bloomed, Derek's face twisted. A plate shattering. You what? He roared. Valerie stumbled. Mask crumbling. The yard fractured. Whispers turned accusations. Chairs scraped. Fireworks booming like judgment. Her glass slipped, shattering, symbol of her splintered throne. Family honor in Ohio is fragile. Scandal scorches. Derek stormed off. George bellowed futilely. Kids cried. Guests scattered. I sat calm. Her words their pyre. Overhead. Fireworks mirrored the blaze below. Vindication ached. Not rejoiced, revenge exacted its toll. The recording faded. Silence slamming down heavier than before. Fireworks flared. Shadows dancing. A kid's voice, Valerie's nephew, pierced. Aunt Val. Was that you? Innocence undid her where adults faltered. She froze. Smile fracturing. Whisper swelled. No mystic in it. Derek slammed his glass. Shards flying. Wine staining like blood. It's true, he bellowed. Valerie crumpled. Please dissolving into sobs. Factions formed, some pitted. Others condemned. Gossip ignited. Her facade cracking. George thundered for order. But his reign shattered. Gandhi's words, silence is cowardice when truth demands voice. Their hush confessed. I watched. Unmoved, this was their unraveling. Not mine. Derek's keys hit the table like a verdict. I'm done. Valerie begged. Unheeded. In the frenzy, George slammed the grill. Grease sparking flames. Screams erupted. Smoke billowing, a metaphor for buried secrets igniting. The barbecue, symbol of unity, became a pyre. Arguing peaked, then ebbed to defeated quiet. Eyes avoided mine, their neutrality exposed as betrayal. Harlan slumped. Fear his crutch. Shame undrowned. Smoke merged with fireworks, destruction above and below. My silence, once scorned, now commanded. No joy in the ashes, only the bitter price of truth. 2 weeks later, Columbus hummed on, lawns mowed. Flags faded, but whispers lingered. At my teaching job, colleagues eyed me curiously, grocery aisles buzzed with that barbecue blow-up. Home with Harlan was a ghost town, shared space. Severed souls. Logistics only, bills. Meals. Normalcy shell. Love's ruins inside. Driving past Valerie Street, I spotted boxes curbside, her hauling them in sweats. Glow vanished. Derek lurked inside, unhelping. Neighbors gawked. Her shame public. Albert Hubbard, we're punished by our sins. Not for Her words had torched her world. Vindication whispered through cardboard confessions. Back home, I eyed bank statements. Plotting separation. Therapy loomed. Reclaiming fragments lost. Valerie's exit freed space for my choices. My path. Strength from humiliation. Resolve from grief. Humid air clung as I drove to George's. Shoebox beside me, tiny sneakers. Symbols of my erased dream. Closure ain't apologies, it's outgrowing the need. I placed them on the main table, where she'd toasted my downfall. This was her place, I whispered. You erased it, now it erases you. No witnesses needed, the act sufficed. Later, a friend relayed, George blanched speechless, Valerie wailed cruelty, Harlan silent as ever. Neighbors buzzed, she left the shoes. Defiance echoed louder than silence. Next morning, I signed separation papers. Hand study. Grief forged steel, betrayal birthed freedom. They thought silence buried me, I carved my rebirth in it. Shutting the door. Cicadas humming. I arrived at myself.